I was right. I love starting videos by being able to say that. Back in the day, around 2 years ago, I got a prototype copy of Earth. And trust me, I did not think I would fall in love with this game as much as I have. And then I sat down and started to play it, and I immediately got what was happening here. One of the most generous games that I've ever played. A game that is 45 to 60 minutes of just crazy point scoring and resource generation, followed up by really tight and really competitive margins when push comes to shove. Yeah, you can have someone crush you twice in a row.
But, you know, they aren't in this video,
but
so...
you know the mistakes that you made along the way. And just recently, a little channel, some people have heard of it, named Dice Tower.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Put out their official review of Earth. 4 of them. Yeah.
It was Wendy, Camilla, Mike, and Tom.
Yeah.
They were all talking about Earth, and it got a 9, 9, 9.5, and a 10. Mike DeLisio giving it the 10.
As far as I know, that is the highest rating from the Dice Tower Foursquare review system.
To date.
To date.
Yeah.
As far as I know, because usually they have an outlier that drops it down a little bit. You know, usually they have like an 8 in there or a 7. You know, that's not the case here. Earth is fantastic, and we're going to talk about what they liked, what they talked about a little bit. And we're going to talk about what we like. This is Chris George from Room and Board. You want to introduce who you are and what you do?
Oh, you know me by now. I'm a friend of the channel. I'm always in the comments. But yeah, I run a channel called Room and Board, and basically, I try to make as entertaining review coverage as possible. Yeah. Every Monday, I take a look at everything leaving crowdfunding and read through all the rule books and give a succinct explanation and try to cover it in that sort of last week of things to get a sense of what the stretch goals may be, what the actual value proposition is with the shipping, those sorts of things. And then there's a bunch of other stuff, just silly things that I end up doing on my channel here and there.
Now, before we dive into this too head first, just so you know, I do a lot of work with Inside Up Games. We have quite a few different sponsored videos on the channel, so please keep that in mind while I tell you
I don't do a lot of work with Inside Up Games.
You don't do any work, as far as I know.
I'm just here to hang out and have fun, and we've played 2 games of this right now, and I think it's great. So.
And you're having fun. So, the Dice Tower video, what was it specifically that Dice Tower's feedback was on this game?
Yeah.
Why is this maybe one of the highest rated games they've had come across their studio?
Well, I think one of the main takeaways that they were saying, I think reflects in a lot of people's reviews, is that sense of generosity like you were talking about. Yeah. Everything is happening all at once, and you're always getting stuff, and you're always getting that dopamine hit of like, yeah, now I'm drowning in soil, now I'm drowning in plants flowing up from the ground. And so the ability to have all of those things always consistently happening makes it for a fun experience. And for me personally, it feels like a rush playing this.
You really do. You spend 45 to 60 minutes just bathing in different growth, different cards, different scoring mechanics, different potential pathways you could take. It just gives you so much stuff to mess with. Now, the object of Earth, for those of you who don't know, is to actually build out a tableau of plant cards or fauna cards here onto the board. Flora and fauna.
Yeah.
Build a tableau of flora cards on here onto the board. They're going to be getting little cubes, little towers representing trees, mushroom caps, and little low-lying plants.
Yep.
You're going to be building that ecosystem according to not only your own personal scoring objectives, the public scoring objectives, which introduce things like animals and other ecosystems you're trying to create, and then also any other scoring objectives you have in your tableau, along with just the generic you score points for this, which is composed of the different plants that you have, the different cards that you've played, and the different compost that you've created. Yep. Basically everything. Your discard pile scores you victory points.
Yeah.
And then there's some cool ways that the game gives you other variable ways to score. What are some of the examples of like fun, interesting things that we've seen that have changed the nature of scoring?
Well, there are these really interesting terrain cards as well, because you have the green cards are the sort of the majority of the deck, and then the terrain cards give you unique scoring conditions. These are like scoring cards. They actually mentioned this in the Dice Tower review as well. Is that they said
banging is someone finishing up our floor downstairs. I'm gonna go close the door so it's a slightly less loud while Chris George continues telling you all about this game.
Yeah, and so so with the terrain cards being the deck also is just, it's got so many cards in it, right? You're going to not make your way through the deck in each game. And so you can't really plan for these scoring cards, but there's such a consistent amount of drawing cards that you're going to have multiple options in your hand. And they all feel fun. Some of them will give you immediate bonuses, like getting 10 growth, 10 little houses, 10 little trees sprouting up, and those are all worth points. This one that I played in our last game that I was really excited about, it was worth 10 points initially, and then you also got 5 extra points if it was diagonally adjacent to a specific type of card, which felt really cool.
I had a variety of cards that allowed me to score off of other people's tableau.
Yeah.
And then there was a card that you could have used.
I know. And I was planning for it the whole game, and I just didn't have enough dirt to get it out. It was the Blooming Land, where I would get 1 point for every card in my hand left over. And so I had a hand of 30 cards left over that I wanted to score points for, and I just never got this out on the board because the game ended too quickly. But that also makes it really fun and exciting, because I loved our first game that we played, my first game that I played, because I have a copy of Earth. My mom got it for me, but I hadn't played it yet, so I was really excited to play it here with you. The first game, I sped forward with building my tableau. I wanted to finish it first, and I felt like I was pushing the pace of the game, and everybody else was doing sort of slower things and gaining points. And so this one, I thought, okay, I'm going to take the slower route. I'm going to plan for these final points, and then the game sped up even quicker than how I had pushed it last time.
West really drove it home.
Yeah, and so the variable sort of speed, or
it's similar to those race-based games, like Viticulture is one that comes to mind, where you have this track, and when you see someone going up it, you need to keep pace with them.
Yeah.
Or you'll be on your heels.
Yeah.
You know, so it's got that ebb and flow of like, build your tableau, get your ecosystem going, get your point scoring system in place, prepare for some of those end game, late stage point scoring. But when you see someone who's a turn or two away from ending the game start moving in that direction, you need to monopolize, you need to capitalize on that. Yeah. So in a similar theme to what Dice Tower did, and probably echoing some of the same points that they talked about, really that was the source of this video, is just the fact that they made a video confirming everything that I've been screaming at you about for the longest time. Listen, I want Inside Up to come back with another Kickstarter. I want to see an expansion. I want to see the world build out even more.
Yeah.
You know, they already have like little mini things like the season expansion, which just added some more point scoring.
Yep.
But I would love to see more fauna, like more fauna introduced into the ecosystem.
I love the fauna objective cards. These also feel like such a race, and when you don't get it and you're a turn away from getting it, even though the point difference is only like 4 points between first and second, really negligible when you're scoring like in the hundreds of points, it still feels so meaningful.
Well, and I would love to see something that made the ecosystem I was building a little bit more dependent and strategic on what I actually needed to build for certain habitats. So they've done a very good job at outlining, like, is this a sunny region, an arid region? Does it have water? What's the flavor text for the different types of growth that can happen here? And it doesn't need to be true to the world that we live in necessarily, to Earth itself.
Yeah.
But I would love to see something where I have this little personal tableau where it's like, hey, if you make a habitat that fits this type of beetle, this type of plant, and this type of like climate, by having this be the dominating like feature, like have a very fungus-rich ecosystem. Yeah. So lots of mushrooms, plus this, plus this, plus that. Your ecosystem now scores these additional points for yourself. So like even more variability, even more depth in these cards. I'm sure they have plenty of ideas where to expand this, but I think this is going to be just a massive Kickstarter the next time they bring it back. Yeah. For me, this is an evergreen.
Yeah, I think it is. In since we're talking about the Dice Towers review as well, they also mentioned comparisons to Ark Nova, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, and Wingspan. But for me,
all of which are evergreens.
Yeah, all of those are evergreens.
This is light, accessible. How confident are you that you can go home and get this to the table?
Oh yeah, 100%.
No brainer, right?
Very very easy to pick up and play. For me, I think this is its own thing. Like I think to compare it to those games feels like it's not honoring what this is, because those games all feel kind of a bit more involved. Wingspan, I just did a review on my channel about all of Wingspan and how Wingspan is not a gateway game. That is the premise.
Wingspan has now grown to the point where I don't even feel comfortable playing it. Like all the expansions, all the modules, all the cards I've already mixed together. I now look at it and I'm like, I could play Wingspan. Yeah. But there's a lot there, and I don't know that I know half of it.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot here, and I don't think that I know half of it.
No, but the difference here is that the iconography and the language of the game is really, really accessible. As soon as you know the language of the game, you're in.
Yeah, I
Whereas
think
Wingspan, because every expansion starts adding modules, it starts getting away from me a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is more of a gateway game than Wingspan is. Like, I think this is the sort of accessible version that you could bring people into the hobby with.
It's a friendly tableau
potentially more effectively than Wingspan, because Wingspan has a little bit more of that added complication, and this one, you're just drowning in stuff, and that always makes people feel good, generally.
So, very quickly, the high and the low. The very best, the very worst of Earth.
I love all the variability in the cards. I love all the variability in the scoring. I love how many cards you're constantly getting in Earth. For me, personally, I like a game where I could affect my opponents a little bit more. And so because you're always drowning in stuff, the only time when you can really affect your opponent is, and I was trying to pay attention to this in our second game, is checking out how much soil you had, which is buying power, and then choosing the action where we all get to buy things.
Yeah, I think the only person you hurt by doing that
was you once. Yeah. And so, like, if you're looking for a game that isn't sort of more solo tableau focused, then don't necessarily run through the streets to grab it. But even still, like, I like that aspect of, I like being able to do that. But I just recognize that, okay, it's about optimization. It's not about, like, screwage. Yeah. It's about optimization. And if you're interested in games that do have optimization and action efficiency, then this is really fun and does it really well.
The best part of Earth for me is just how obsessively generous it is. Yeah. That multi-use action, the fact that everyone's involved the entire duration of the game, makes for a very, very satisfying play experience. And the worst part for me has to be the option to have a lot of AP when looking at the amount of stuff you're getting. The cards you have, the combinations you can make, where you can put them down in your tableau. And Earth is a funny game in that I think you can maximize your score by having a bit of AP, but the reality of it is just kind of going with your gut instinct, pursuing a few strategies, and playing it within that 45-minute time period instead of sitting for a long time looking at cards really is the best experience, and the points are not going to be so drastically different. If you want to explore the AP routes of the game, play the solo mode. Really get comfortable with how you chain, build, and create an ecosystem.
That's good
advice. If you're playing with other people, this is not a game that actually does you better for having AP. Some games are like that. Terraforming Mars, if you run AP on that game, you might actually come out ahead or atop. This is one that still has enough variability, and other people's tableaus have enough of their own pathways that your AP may or may not make the difference, but it's probably not as important as it feels it should be.
Yeah, I mean, like, I did worse in my second game, and I was trying deliberately to slow down and think about my larger plans, and I got so wrapped up in thinking about those larger plans.
Part of this game is just kind of going.
The game was over.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays, but I think that's actually a really great point if you're prone to AP, and I am personally. I feel like if I wasn't playing with you two, and we weren't playing on camera, and we don't want it to be like
One of the
2 to 3
reasons I love
hours,
playing on camera is because it speeds everyone up. You're all engaged and you all have to go.
Yeah. If that wasn't happening, I'd probably be a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But again, I did better when I was just flying by the seat of my pants in the first game than I did in the second one. So because I think you're always going to be getting all these options and every card does something different, it is going to be really overwhelming at points. Like, I had a mitt of 30 cards in my hand. 30 cards, and I can play one of them. And they all cost around the same amount of soil. And so going through each one and thinking, okay, which one, what am I going to do? Like, which one of these is going to be the most effective for me?
Were you flipping cards backwards?
I was, yeah. They suggested do this in the game is in the rule book is to flip cards so you know you're not going to touch.
And I'll usually have
a really good
I'll usually have a simple objective that's causing me to flip cards. Like, for instance, if I need houses. And I need red cards, then I'll keep houses and red cards. Anything else I'll glance at. And if it doesn't seem really good for something specific, I flip it. And then the way that I organize my flipped cards for composting is I put all of my abilities at the back of the pile and all of my generic cards at the front. Meaning as I compost, I don't have to look at what I'm composting.
Yeah.
I know that it's all the generics going down, and any abilities that I might need, like a Hail Mary style use eventually, those are still there until I've ran out of cards to compost.
Yeah.
Then those go away as well.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the thought. That's sort of the thought there.
That's a great way of doing it. Yeah.
So there you have it. I was right. I was right. And if you haven't played Earth yet, you need to go ahead and find out exactly why.
And this is the first time, too, so it's pretty special for you.
Being right?
Being right.
Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Put
some goldfish in your mouth.
Get your tagline right. And
play some freaking
people will
games.
respect you more, maybe.
Yeah, remember to do the important thing.
Do board games, board game boy.
Do some board games.
We'll see you next time. Bye.